Hey guys, Dave Beatty here, creator of the Nimitz Encounters film. Today I present to you the first ever video interview about a UFO sighting aboard the Navy supercarrier USS Ronald Reagan. This case was brought to my attention by Australian researcher Keith Basterfield of UFO Scientific Research Blogspot.com. This interview with Karol Olesiak is based on his article on the website soldiersforthecause.org. Recently, I began researching the case and speaking to numerous witnesses. I was provided proof of service for both Karol and his shipmate Derek Smith, as seen in these cruise book photos from 2004. As of this recording, the exact date of the sighting is still a mystery, most likely 2004. What follows is my first interview with Karol, as well as Derek Smith's recollection of the UFO. If you'd like to find out more about this case, head over to thedebrief.org or check out my article on medium.com. Links are in the description. I can always be contacted at anon@thenimitzencounters.com or on Twitter. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for updates to this case. More interviews to come. Thanks for doing this, Karol.
Hi, thanks for having me on. My name is Karol Olesiak. I am originally an immigrant from Wrocław, Poland, and I served in the military from 2002 to 2006, and then in the reserves from 2006 to 2010.
Tell me, just describe briefly the rate of a quartermaster, and I don't think most people would understand what that is. What's that job?
Quartermaster in the Army has more to do with supply. In the Navy, a quartermaster trains in old school navigation. And I'll tell you, we're super afraid that GPS is just not going to work one of these days. So we're trained with signalmen, and we're trained on celestial navigation, as well as satellite navigation, which was becoming a big thing. So I actually had a part to play in VMS technology, which was some of the original technology for autopilots of ships, and what became Google Maps later.
Outside of your training, was your first sort of at sea or deployment, was that to the USS Ronald Reagan? And I know that you mentioned that you were a plank holder, and that's the term I learned was that you were one of the original sailors that boards a vessel out of the shipyard.
That's right. That's right. And I was also received some letters of commendation for helping to build the ship and being there in the shipyard. It was a weird time.
The Navy is commissioning the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan. This is the first time a Navy ship has been commissioned to a living president.
I believe that the USS Ronald Reagan was commissioned in, I'll say, July 15th in Norfolk. So there was like a big ceremony. And so after that, because I started putting a timeline together, after talking to you about the ship and what you recalled, it looked like right after that, in the same month, that the ship went out to sea with a test and evaluation squadron. And I know that I read that sometimes a carrier like that will go out and they'll do air operations just to certify the flight deck. So it seemed, I don't know if that was at the exact time. It was around the latter part of July that you guys went off the coast of Virginia and were actually doing air ops with this VX-23, the Salty Dogs. There was a period of time before the Navy had it that the ship was being tested and systems were being repaired and changed. And then the Navy has the vessel, and it's been a long time since 2003. Obviously, I can imagine trying to remember some of these events. It kind of runs together. And in other Navy vets that I talked to from the Nimitz in 2004, it's the same thing. It's like they kind of remember it, but it's sometimes just the sequence of events are. Now, with the Hurricane Isabella that was approaching the East Coast in September of 2003. So this would have been a few months later after the Navy received the ship, and the ships that are there all weigh anchor and go out to sea. Tell me a little bit about that. Were you on the ship at that time, and what was that like?
I had an apartment in Ghent at the time, and it was just a matter of packing up my stuff They didn't give us a lot of information. I just knew we were going out to do hurricane avoidance. I don't remember getting out there, but it's the watch itself that I've reminded myself of over the years because I knew that it was important. You know, when something important happens to you, you kind of run it through over and over through your head, and you get details kind of wrong, but my memory's really good.
Let's I'm just going to let you give me this play-by-play and tell me what you remember of this event, and just go through the whole thing, and then we'll go back and kind of
what I remember when I arrived on watch, the thing was already there. And when I say the thing, it's an orb of light. It's an orb of light, but not interfering with the planes launching, but as just sitting there. And we were going about 22 knots. And I don't remember the person that I relieved, and I've been trying to figure it out who it was that I had relieved, but I've yet to locate them. But I'm pretty sure it was there, and they were like, I don't know what that is, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like they had an attitude like, I'm going to my rack, I don't care, don't even bother me about this shit. So this thing is there the entirety of my watch, and because the officers are ignoring it, I'm forced to ignore it. And I feel like it's like this weird, like emperor's clothes kind of scenario, where the emperor isn't wearing any clothes, but you have to pretend that he is. And I'm not like a fully trained QMOW. I think I'm Karen at the time. And like, we hadn't even gone around the horn yet. And so I'm going with the officer of the deck, like whatever the officer of the deck is thinking, I'm going to agree with it, because I had been through boot camp, which is a kind of brainwashing in a way. But this thing is floating there. The officer of the deck and the conning officer are kind of, seems like there's this party going on around the captain's chair. Like they're not worried about anything. Ensign, he didn't say much to me. I included some of the stuff in my article. But he had this great quote. When Derek Smith came back up, and Derek Smith was on the catwalks, and he's right below this thing.
So Derek was a lookout, and he was outside the bridge on the catwalk outside of the on the superstructure, and he said that he was with another.
We've been trying to find her, but I don't think he was able to give me her full name.
You had a recording of a small interview that you did with Derek Smith, and I'm going to play just a snippet of that right now for the audience.
We were just bullshitting, talking, and I was explaining shit to her about lookout and stuff, and then we just started talking about what the hell, whatever from random shit we were talking about, and then an orange orb appeared over the flight deck, and she looked at me. I was like, what the fuck is this?
So it was behind you guys?
Huh?
It was behind you?
No, it was in front of us.
It was in front of you.
It was in front of us because we were on starboard forward.
Starboard forward.
So when you're on the island and starboard forward, that's you got I'd say about 70% of the flight deck in front of you. And I remember we were looking down at the flight deck, and you had airmen on there and everything, and me and her were just looking at each other, and then we looked down at the flight deck, and all the people on the flight deck was looking up at the shit. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I couldn't recognize it and shit, so I looked at it through the big eyes, and I still couldn't tell what the fuck it was. It was crazy, man. It was... Maybe it was... It's been 15, 20 years. From what I remember, I thought it was like oval shaped, but like a sideways oval. But it wasn't solid, man. Like, it just seemed like a gas or something. And I just couldn't I couldn't put two and two together, man. I couldn't tell what the it was, man. Yeah, I do remember. Let me go back. I can't remember when it disappeared, but I remember it did disappear. And being that we had the sound powered telephones on, once it disappeared, I remember a couple minutes later, whoever was on the fantail had reported the same thing, man. I called to the bridge.
You called to the bridge. You didn't come up to the bridge?
Yeah, I called to the bridge, and I said, what was it, Tops or whatever? I can't remember that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I called Top, and I just said I got air contact. I can't remember all the
lingo. Yeah. But you.
But one thing I do remember, because we rotated with starboard forward. I forget the other two spots, what they were called. But we rotated, and then we'd go into the bridge, and we'd do helm and lee helm. I remember once we rotated, and I ended up going into the bridge, that one officer, I can't remember his name, but he made the comment. He's like, yeah, when I was a little kid, I told my mom I saw a UFO, and she told me don't tell nobody. I want to say it lasted a couple minutes.
Really? Because I saw it almost the whole night. I was on the bridge. And for my entire watch, for my entire 4-hour watch, that thing was there.
Well, I could be wrong, man. It's been so long ago.
I mean, I could be wrong too.
I just don't. I don't remember all that shit. I just remember what the fuck I saw.
Maybe
I don't remember how long it lasted. I do, however, like I said, remember it had disappeared, and then the fantail had ended up calling it in. And I'm thinking in my head, like, what the fuck is going on, man? What is going on? It was crazy.
On the other side, on the catwalks, is Patrick Goki. Not only is he seeing that, he's seeing other orbs on the starboard side doing these half circles. But when he goes back to the fantail, he's seeing them again doing these half circles again, kind of like we're launching planes and they're doing half circles around the plane, around our ship. I mean, the surprising thing to me is that certain people didn't seem to see it, but I've always counted, what people saw and what they didn't see, what they pretended to see, or whether they were freaked out by it, which is the normal response. What was going on that ship was just strange, that like enchanted, that we were enchanted by something.
I just pulled up this 3D version. It's not Reagan, but kind of, well, I guess maybe it is. It says 76, so maybe it's pretty accurate.
There's four catapults, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right?
Right, and I don't know if they start, left to right, like you have the nose.
It's been a long time since I knew all that. The fantail is the very back. That's where the watch, the very back of the ship. That's in Navy speak, that's the aft. That's the aft part of the ship. That's where the fantail is.
So this is
that's where Patrick was standing when he was relieved. When he was relieved from port forward, he was standing watch back there.
So, like, if they were standing watch, obviously they wouldn't be standing on the flight deck. They would be like down here below.
Yeah. I think their watch is down there somewhere.
So, like down in this area.
Yeah, they own the deck owns all those spaces.
So then the starboard side would be the right-hand side. Is that right? Where let me just go into let's talk about the superstructure and the 3 levels we see here. You would have been on the second level of the superstructure inside this area here.
So it's watching. Let's say that this is catapult 2 right here. That's catapult 2. Right. Yeah. So that's about where it is. And it's watching the planes it's watching the planes get launched. You know, I mean, watching. I mean, for me, I was even though I'd never seen it before, I thought that this was natural, and that, you know, that this was an organic thing, that we would maybe another form of life, maybe, but something we would figure out in the future.
Where was Derek? Say, if I can swivel around, you can talk me into it. I can kind of.
Well, he was saying that he was saying in the recording anyway.
Yeah.
He was saying that he was on the island.
He said he could see, I think 70%. I think he said of the flight deck.
This is where the lookouts, I believe. This is where they would be standing up here. Do you see my arrow?
Yeah, so standing up.
Standing by, from what I remember, there'd be a lookout up here standing by the door.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, you kind of, you know, several times have described going to watch, and actually, because everybody else that was on the bridge seemed to be not paying attention to this, you kind of obviously went along with that, even though there's this conflict in your mind.
I took my position of authority very seriously. You know, that's what you're trained to do, to take yourself seriously, you know, like, so you're looking out. I mean, it's a problem when somebody tells you that it's a problem. It's a problem when somebody tells you that it's a problem.
Yeah, right. So you have a rank structure, and the officers of the deck were not acting like this is a problem. So then it's not a problem. Right. But you have a front row seat here because you're on the second level of the superstructure, and there's lots of big windows, and you have a clear view.
I'm seeing people on the flight deck looking up at it. So I know that I'm sharing an experience, right? Like that it's not, I mean, I just imagined that we would figure it out at some point.
Did you ever think that because no one was really paying attention, that this might be some type of U.S. craft or something like that, and that no one was talking about it because
we don't have anything like that. We don't have anything like that. You know, I
even
feel
at
like
the time you knew that wasn't our craft.
I'm working on, like, you know, navigation systems that cost like hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm seeing the most advanced aircrafts. You know, the Navy has the most advanced cryogenics program, the most advanced everything. You know, when people talk about like the government being able to control the weather, I know that that's bullshit, because if it was true, I would know about it. You know, I think there's people that have never been in the military and never had clearance that claim that they know. But I mean, I never had categorically that kind of clearance. I don't buy it, you know?
Right. And so can you, in the best kind of description you can give me, describe to your eyes anyways what this object looked like? Is there anything that kind of the average person could relate to in their daily lives, something similar? That I know that you use the word burning bush, but I mean that when I say burning bush, and I mean that in the Eastern Orthodox way, because like I said, I've had a lot of time to unpack this experience, and I'm not, you know, I've had my own experiences, and my own beliefs are kind of irrelevant to this. But in the Eastern Orthodox Church, they explain the burning bush as unburnt energy. And I used to work with battery technology. In battery technology, there's this kind of mystical idea of negative energy. This, you know, like, and that's what I would, again, we don't have, when you see it, you're entranced by the novelty of it. You've never seen it before, right? You've never seen the idea of negative energy, right? But it's there. You don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. The experience of seeing something you haven't seen before. That's what I hear from when you talk to Derek Smith. That's what he'll tell you as well. Right.
You know?
Like you could talk about indigenous people the first time they may have seen an English sailing vessel approach. It's just something not in their lexicon.
I've heard that. Yeah.
So,
And in a way, they prophesized it too. In a way, they prophesized it too. And it says something we don't really understand our own consciousness. I have a lot of questions, still in this life. And that kind of keeps me going, because after the military, after being involved with war, I thought that this was the end of history, and it isn't. There's a lot we haven't figured out. So my description is the description from the Eastern Orthodox Church, where there's this idea of an unburnt energy, of a negative energy that you can see.
And it was orange. Did it have movement within it, or was it solid, or?
Well, I would say it looks like it's on fire, right? It's both gaseous. It's both gaseous, and it looks like it's on fire at the same time.
So I'll read.
I can still see it. I can still see it in my mind when I close my eyes, because I spent a lot of time staring at it. This is at least a 4-hour watch, and I'm pretty sure it was going on before I got there and going on after I left as well. So, I probably would have got there at about 8 p.m. and left about midnight, just exhausted.
So even at 8, it probably would have been after dusk out there in the ocean. And so this was a luminous object.
It looked like it was moving. We were moving. It didn't look like it was moving.
It was like internally luminous. It was glowing then, like on fire, versus like, say, it being reflective light onto it, right? You're saying that this object was emitting its own kind of orange glow?
Yeah. And it wouldn't be like big embers of something, but it's a ball of movement, right? But it's not moving.
When Derek, the last time you saw him, he had a different experience about the length of time of this thing.
Yeah, well, his watches were shorter.
Right.
Yeah, but I wondered if there is a lost time thing there. But I can attest to the fact that it was a long encounter.
How many people do you think
on the bridge, from being on the bridge, that it was not a short encounter? That is my I know that their watches were shorter, that they would rotate to different positions, I had a nice warm watch inside of Windows in a position of authority, and they had outdoor watches. So in a lot of ways, they got to see this thing closer than I did, and not through this bulletproof glass, that I was looking through. But
he mentioned that another watchstander, like you said, there were 3, I think, lookouts, and he said one of the others reported that he was seeing it on the fantail, like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's Patrick. Patrick said he rotated.
How many people do you think, if you just guesstimated, like during that time period that you recall, would have seen this object? Because
like a thousand at least.
1,000. I mean,
1,000.
Karol,
the people on the flight decks, all of the people. This is like 8 o'clock, so it's not like the whole ship is asleep. Maybe I'm exaggerating to say 1,000, but at least 300.
This has to be the biggest mass sighting in history, at least modern history.
I've always been surprised that it never came to light. For me, I wanted to be a famous writer. This is not that I want to be known for being the crew of. There's greater things that I've done in my life, and I've actually had more profound experiences in my life.
Just going to military doctrine and tactics, techniques, and procedures of a warship at sea, I imagine that if a FA-18 sized, glowing orange, oval shaped thing hovers over an active flight deck, that something would happen. You know, I mean, I can't imagine that General Quarters wasn't called. Obviously, there was some reason.
Well, my Master Chief was in charge. Like, he was the big player in navigation, right? Right, but he wasn't anywhere around, because 8 o'clock is like 8 o'clock. The chief mess is full of chiefs. You know what I mean? All of the brass of the ship is relaxing, right? Besides the watchstanders. Yeah, I don't get it either. I never did. It's always been a question on my mind, but I started really, really thinking about it as the pandemic started. You know, I was like, I mean, for me, when I got to New York, I was like, well, we really haven't figured out the nature of reality yet. You know, maybe it's not about UFOs a lot at all. Like, I just was reading a lot of philosophy. You know, there's a lot of magic in the world still, you know, that you can find. But
there's a lot of mysteries still that haven't been explained. You know, I mean, that's one reason that I enjoy examining this material, like especially when you look at this sort of almost denial of something that's right in front of you. Like, they don't want to tell me.
But the Emperor's Clothes relates to a lot of aspects of our society. There's a lot of things that we kind of completely ignore, not just lights in the sky. You know, like, plausible deniability is such an American thing, you know.
No one wants to take responsibility for waking the captain up or go telling the captain.
Right. Who's going to go tell the captain that there's a light over the flight deck? And how are you going to explain that exactly?
Yeah. So I wonder, you know,
are we going to wake the captain was a question that we would ask a lot at sea. Let's say that. And we never, ever woke the captain. And we almost hit a buoy one time. Maybe he got woken up that time. That was around Australia or somewhere around there.
There is a combat on they call the combat information or the combat direction center on a carrier, which would be the location where the radars and the defensive systems are. Did you ever hear from anybody from those departments that might have been, you know, looking at the radars or anything?
Wardell was, I guess he would have been the assistant to the assistant to the conning officer. That would have been his position on watch. So he is minding the radar that's to the left of my table, and he's communicating with them. So yeah, they're seeing it. But in terms of showing up on some sort of radar, I don't recall them ever that coming up.
Right. We would have to find somebody else that was in that department that would have been below decks.
There's a radar right next to my chart table, and I'm looking at it.
Oh, so you don't recall that it was anything?
Why would anything show up right on top of our flight deck? You know,
it'd be too close, right? In the clutter.
Yeah.
And you never, I mean, from the point when you arrived, this object was already over the flight deck. And then the guy that replaced you was a kind of the similar thing, like, hey, have fun, see you later. And this thing is still there.
That's what I remember. And that's where the details are kind of hazy. Right. I was working 16-hour days, you know, but, you know, I'm pretty sure it was there when I got there, and that the turnover was the turnover was weak, you know, he didn't care much. And I'm pretty positive that it was the same kind of thing, that, like, it's there, we don't know what it is, don't write it in the log.
So would you be the one? I guess there's another bosun's mate that takes care of the deck log, right? That wouldn't be your job.
I have the official ship's log. Mm-hmm. That was one of my responsibilities, and I was told to not log that thing.
So it wasn't a race. It was just that you were told by.
I asked, should I be logging this? You know, and I think I might have asked the conning officer. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but the impression that I got was that this should not be in the official log.
So the vessel would be going, say, in this particular instance, you're not sure, but a normal speed might be, what, 20 knots at this point?
I believe it was 22.
And then this object's like 100 feet above in maintaining pacing with that.
I'd have to, in relation to the island, I would say that it's like, it's at eye level to almost to where I'm at on the bridge. I mean, eye level, but then more towards the middle of the flight deck in front of me,
Okay, so I can probably, I could measure that. I could get a direct measurement of the height of that second.
Definitely it wasn't above me or below me.
So it was straight out eye level.
Yeah, it was like straight out. And it was about the size of a jet fighter, maybe without the wings, just circular.
And you at this time, you kind of remember, because it would have been significant that they were conducting flight operations, launching jets at the same time.
I know we were going 22 knots, because 22 knots is kind of the sweet spot, because you're catapulting these planes off of the ship, and you're catapulting. Like, part of our job is to make sure that the winds are right. So when you're catapulting them, they're getting the right kind of uplift for the jet fighters.
So did anyone ever report hearing any sound from this thing? I mean, I don't know if Derek was outside.
That's a question. I didn't hear any sound. You can ask Derek and Patrick, but I didn't hear any sound.
It's so loud, outside. And but you never saw, and as far as any of the guys you talked to, you never saw this thing arrive. Like, it didn't come, beaming in or something, and you never saw it leave either, right?
I never saw. Yeah, as far as to my best recollection, I neither saw its arrival or its departure. Even though I felt that I should stay and figure out what the hell is going on,
I'm hoping we can find some more.
I went to my rack and went to sleep,
Yeah, it's so strange that it just seemed like another walk in the park, and everyone kind of went about their. Did people talk about this in the days after it?
No, I mean, there was rumors, and a lot of it were rumors around deck. See, I don't have a lot of experience with people in the flight side of the aircraft carrier. How
many guys that you still talk to kind of remember this event? You kind of still communicate with, like, there's Derek.
I included the people that I think are trustworthy in my article.
So your article is at what's the website that people can look at?
www.soldiersforthecause.org.
One thing I forgot, I mean, people in 2003 weren't carrying around megapixel cameras on their phones. We didn't have phones like that. So do you think anybody took pictures? I mean, obviously it's pretty unlikely, but what's your feeling about that?
That's the first thing my brother asked me, and I didn't even have a smartphone until 2011.
Right.
And yeah, nobody carried phones in uniform, especially when we were out to sea, when there was no, you don't have any coverage. So,
right. Today it's so.
I'm not sure that taking pictures of these things is the right path. I've thought about this a lot, like about what we've been doing in terms of trying to gather photographic evidence and whether that's getting us anywhere, because the world just doesn't need another bad picture. That was like, it's not helping anybody's cause, and I think we're over reliant on video and that technology, even though we're using it, the conversation is the thing that's more important than the video.
True. I mean, but people get shouted down so much that this is a lie, you're telling a lie, this didn't happen. And again, I'm sure that this case will get the same thing from the people that are
There's no
kind
such
of,
thing as pure lies. There's no. I think what, in terms of the UFO phenomenon in this country, what we used to say is that why is this happening to people in rural areas without education? You know what I mean? As if they're going to go to communicate with the pilot who has this tunnel vision. There's something there in terms of our perception, in terms of why certain people see it and certain people don't. And I know that there's tons of people that want to see it. That's another interesting phenomenon, like experience seekers, as if that's going to somehow change your life.
Mhm.
Once you see it, I mean, I guess we're always being fed something, that we think that something other than lifestyle is going to change our lives. That something will come here and save us. Something will come here and inspire us. And that's just I don't see it that way.
Well, I'm going to ask this. I'm sure I know the answer, but in some of these other cases with the Navy, we were told that people came aboard after these events and told people not to talk about it. Did that ever occur? Did you?
I've experienced nothing like that. Not once.
Right. So
I experienced more pushback as an activist, as an anti-war activist, than I ever did about UFOs in any kind of way. I'm an immigrant in this country, so I have been exposed to the idea of conspiracy kind of secondhand. The idea is manufactured here, like everything is a conspiracy.
mm-hmm.
I haven't experienced that.
It's just been the opposite, where your colleagues and former shipmates have been encouraging you to finally get around to write about it.
Right. And the fact that this happened, and there was so many people who saw it, and there was so many aspiring writers on my ship, aspiring journalists, like I was more arbitrary than that, like I only became less arbitrary later on in my life and started caring about other people and issues. And, I attribute some of that to this. I remember coming back from the military and sharing this with my family. I was like, hey, I saw UFOs, I mean, people were so quick to shut down the conversation, to clown me, as if I have a credibility problem. It's like, but the moment you open up your mouth about something like that, you automatically start having a credibility problem for some reason.
Sometimes people will, change the subject and don't want to discuss it. It's not that they,
it's something that doesn't fit into their worldview. And they can't stomach it, So I don't know what it means exactly, but it has to mean something. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it means aliens. I don't know if it means that, like this is a multiverse. I don't know what it means, but it's proof of something.
Well, not many people see UFOs. You've seen them twice. Did you come away with, at least insight personally that led you to perhaps any more of a speculation, or do you think, or were you kind of before this and then afterwards? I mean, where do you land now on the idea of what that was?
Right. There's the things that you learn from books, but they also have to be reconciled with the things that you've seen in this life and the things that you've experienced. And, if it doesn't fall into that thing, and I know that experience is kind of scoffed at in our world, because a lot of time experience can lead us to having bad opinions. I mean, a lot of racism is formed on people's bad experiences and kind of individualized or whatever, like I think it's about good opinion. If your experience leads to you having a better opinion, which this experience, I think was a catalyst on my path to good opinion. If you're seeing lights in the sky and those lights in the sky are telling you that, YOLO, that you only live once, then that's a bad experience. But that's not what happens to people. What I've learned, People, when they open up their minds, they also open up their hearts. And it's a journey. I'm still not the person that I want to be, even at the age of 43. But I'm getting there. And this definitely had something to do with it. I have talked to Patrick about it as well. Like, would we, had we not seen lights in the sky, would we have reacted so strongly to political injustice? And we still do a lot of work with Veterans for Peace. And it's a lifestyle. Like feeling better about yourself is a lifestyle.
So in other words, if it was a catalyst to improving your own life and being able to have a philosophy that looks upon human suffering and injustice is a good thing if that's one of the outcomes of this event.
I think that's been happening for thousands of years. I don't think I don't think I'm special, but that is kind of the experience. The experience is kind of the specialness, right? How special am I to see these lights in the sky? At least the first time. Maybe that's not how I felt on the Reagan, because I'd been so brainwashed. I had my own tunnel vision. My echo chamber right now is just the good opinion. I try to keep my echo chamber at good opinion, but when you go through the kind of 3-month brainwashing of going through boot camp and then going out into the fleet, you have this tunnel vision in terms of what you're seeing. I didn't feel anything. I'm an ephemeral person, but I didn't feel anything when I saw it. I didn't have this feeling of otherworldliness that other people talk about. I definitely did the second time.
I'm going to wrap this up. I really appreciate your time just doing this, because I think there's people that are interested in this topic, and no one's heard about the Ronald Reagan, I assure you, because I'm pretty tied into all the UFO community, and I've never heard of it. So thank you, Karol, for your service and the time today presenting your story. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
In the ensuing days since Karol's interview, numerous Ronald Reagan witnesses have come forward to corroborate this event. I will present these interviews here in the coming days. I'm sure more will follow. New videos can be added to my channel with new information, but I can't replace this video with an updated version. So please check out the channel, subscribe, and look for updates on this case. As of April 2022, we do not know the exact date of the event, nor even the exact month. We do not know the exact location of the ship when the event took place. We also don't know if the Navy ever investigated this obvious incursion into the protected zone around the carrier. If you or anyone you know has witnessed UFOs from military, ships, or planes, contact us at the email on your screen. You can remain anonymous.